Car companies like to say they're all in on the electric vehicle future. Their industry lobbyists are telling a different story. For example, when Canada announced a plan for 100% of cars sold in the country to be electric by 2035 to help us reach a cleaner future, how did car companies react? Not well. They claimed the sky will fall. The industry lobby representing General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis threatened it could cause manufacturers to reconsider their long-term investment in Canada. Another prominent industry lobbyist called it a nonsensical fantasy. Ooh! That sounds dire, except this isn't the first time that car companies have overreacted to regulations that would make cars safer or less polluting. The times keep changing, but car company excuses stay the same. And time after time, they have been proven wrong. Let's take a look back. We're in the 1960s, at the time of Beatlemania, Black Power, and hippies. But did you know that seatbelts were not required in cars until 1968? It's true. Volvo first installed 3-point over-the-shoulder seatbelts in its cars in 1959 and released the patent in 1962. But most North American car companies didn't add seatbelts until they had to. They also blamed bad drivers for people getting hurt in accidents instead of the lack of safety features in cars. And the industry's finger-pointing game has been on point ever since. In 1966, Henry Ford said that seatbelts and other safety features were unreasonable, arbitrary, and technically infeasible. And he threatened that Ford might have to close down. So dramatic. Well, every single car today has seatbelts, and the sky, it didn't fall. How about that? It's the 1970s, a time of bell-bottoms, disco, and the rise of women's and LGBT rights. That's when car companies began fighting fuel economy standards and devices like the catalytic converter to reduce pollution from cars. In 1972, General Motors said if GM is forced to introduce catalytic converter systems, it is conceivable that complete stoppage of the entire production could occur. Did the whole industry come from the same drama class? Spoiler alert, catalytic converters became standard and the industry didn't collapse. Then came the 1980s, a time of asymmetrical haircuts, shoulder pads, and cable television. What were the car companies doing, you ask? Continuing to fight against improving the fuel economy of their cars. In 1989, after a decade of trying to roll back measures to reduce pollution from cars, the Detroit automakers launched an ad campaign against stronger emission standards, claiming there would be little public health benefit, little impact on fuel economy, a shortage of available vehicle models, driving performance issues, and higher costs for consumers. Well, that didn't happen. Cars got less polluting and people continued buying them. On to the 1990s. A time of glow sticks, the rise of the internet, and the specter of Y2K. But even as the times changed, car companies kept using the same excuses. Like in 1994, when Chrysler said that an increase to fuel economy standards in pickup trucks would have a very destructive effect on our business. Oh no! Don't worry, the sky didn't fall. And car companies are making more pickup trucks than ever. Cha-ching! Despite knowing for decades that their products were contributing to the climate crisis, car corporations continued to sow doubt about climate science and lobby against regulations which would make them clean up their act. In 1997 came the worst excuse of all. Robert Eaton, CEO of Chrysler, said, "Autos are not a major contributor to total global warming emissions in the environment." Yikes. Cut to the 2000s. The new millennium, the start of Facebook and YouTube, a time of hipsters and the rise of smartphones. It was also a time when Ford and GM gave generously to think tanks that spread misinformation about climate change and funded advertisements that tried to convince people that the carbon dioxide from burning fossil fuels is a good thing. This is from one of those car company funded ads. Some politicians want to label carbon dioxide a pollutant. Imagine if they succeed. What would our lives be like then? Carbon dioxide. They call it pollution. We call it life. Holy smokes. That did not age well. And that takes us to today. We all know that gas-powered vehicles are a major contributor to climate change. And we all know that one of the solutions is to make vehicles electric. But what happened when the Canadian government proposed a clean car standard to make electric vehicles more available and more affordable for people in Canada? Too far, too fast, corporate lobbyists from the auto industry cried. The times have changed, but car company excuses remain the same. From seatbelts to fuel economy standards to climate science, the auto industry has always put their profits over the safety of people and the planet. And every time, the government has had to step in and make them do the right thing. The auto industry is doing it again, and we won't let them get away with it. Visit cleancarstandard.ca to find out more.